Hollywood's brightest stars often live double lives, and while history remembers their performances, the truth about their private attractions remained buried for decades. Before acceptance was even imaginable, these performers navigated relationships with both men and women, risking everything if exposed. Tonight, we're uncovering 20 icons whose bisexuality stayed hidden behind studio contracts, arranged marriages, and carefully controlled images. These aren't rumors. These are documented stories that rewrite what we thought we knew. 1. Marlon Brando. The god of method acting didn't just revolutionize performance. He lived without apologies off-screen too. Brando openly discussed his relationships with both genders in later interviews, admitting he'd been with men throughout his career while maintaining high-profile romances with women. His raw honesty shocked biographers who expected denial. Friends confirmed he viewed attraction as fluid long before society had language for it. Richard Pryor's widow even claimed the two comedic legends shared a brief romance in the 1970s, though this remains debated. Critics called him fearless on screen, but his real courage was refusing to hide who he desired. Brando's legacy isn't just about acting. It's about living authentically when the world demanded conformity. His $3.7 million paycheck for Superman proved Hollywood needed him more than he needed their approval. 2. Cary Grant. Behind the impeccable tuxedos and British charm lived Hollywood's most enigmatic leading man. Grant shared a home with actor Randolph Scott for over a decade, sparking endless speculation that studio publicists frantically tried to contain. Promotional photos showed them lounging poolside together, living openly, while gossip columnists looked the other way. Grant married 5 times, yet close friends insisted his deepest emotional connections included men. Biographer Mark Elliott documented Grant's relationships with both genders, citing interviews where the actor himself acknowledged his attractions. Studios forced him into arranged romances to maintain his heartthrob image, but Grant's private correspondence revealed a man torn between desire and reputation. Even his daughter Jennifer acknowledged the complexity of her father's identity. His suave persona masked genuine struggle. Grant died in 1986 without confirming what many suspected, leaving behind films that defined elegance and a personal life that defied every Hollywood rule. 3. Marlene Dietrich. The German siren who conquered Hollywood refused to play by anyone's rules, especially about who she could love. Dietrich's affairs with both men and women were legendary, from her passionate romance with writer Mercedes D'Acosta to her countless male co-stars. She wore men's suits in public during the 1930s, a radical statement that studios couldn't suppress. Dietrich's daughter, Maria Riva's memoir, exposed her mother's web of relationships, confirming what insiders always knew. Critics called her performances magnetic, but her real magnetism transcended gender completely. She kissed women in Morocco, scandalizing 1930 audiences, while Paramount executives panicked over censors. Dietrich's bisexuality wasn't hidden. It was simply ignored by a press that couldn't handle the truth. She collected lovers like other stars collected awards, living with absolute freedom in an era of suffocating conformity. Her estate auction in 1997 included love letters to partners of both genders, finally documenting what she never denied. 4. James Dean. The rebel icon lived fast, died young, and loved without boundaries. Dean's biographers revealed relationships with men, including Rogers Brackett, who mentored him early in his career, while he simultaneously dated women like Pier Angeli. His 3 films made him immortal, but his private life remained deliberately mysterious. Friends described Dean as emotionally fluid, connecting intensely with people regardless of gender. Gossip columnist Hedda Hopper suspected but never printed the truth, knowing it would destroy him. Dean's letters to writer William Bast suggested romantic feelings that went beyond friendship. His death at 24 in 1955 froze him in time before Hollywood could force him into a closet or a fake marriage. Giant co-star Elizabeth Taylor later said Dean lived more authentically than anyone she knew. His $800,000 estate seems tiny now, but his cultural impact remains massive. Dean's legend grew partly because he escaped Hollywood's sanitizing machine before it could erase his truth. 5. Greta Garbo, the Swedish enigma who made silence seductive, never explained herself to anyone. Garbo's intense relationship with writer Mercedes de Acosta spanned decades, documented in passionate letters that surfaced after both died. She also maintained connections with men, including conductor Leopold Stokowski, keeping everyone guessing. Her famous line, "I want to be alone," wasn't about solitude. It was about privacy in a world obsessed with her personal life. Garbo retired at 35, walking away from millions because she refused to live under studio surveillance. Biographers found evidence of relationships with multiple women alongside her documented male romances. She bought a New York apartment and disappeared from public view, controlling her narrative by revealing nothing. Critics praised her mystery, never knowing it protected her from exposure. Garbo's reclusiveness wasn't shyness. It was survival. Her estate, valued at $32 million, proved she didn't need Hollywood's approval to live comfortably on her own terms. 6. Tallulah Bankhead. The raspy-voiced Broadway legend lived so outrageously that even Hollywood couldn't tame her. Bankhead's affairs with both men and women were openly discussed in theater circles, though mainstream press avoided the topic. She allegedly romanced everyone from Billie Holiday to Gary Cooper, never apologizing for her appetites. Her performances in Lifeboat and The Little Foxes showcased her talent, but her off-screen persona overshadowed everything. Bankhead once declared she was ambisextrous when asked about her preferences, shocking radio audiences. Studio executives considered her too wild to control, limiting her film roles despite her stage success. Friends described dinner parties where she held court, surrounded by lovers of both genders. Her drinking and scandal kept her controversial, but it also kept her free from studio contracts that would have silenced her. Bankhead died in 1968, owing the IRS thousands, having spent every dollar on living exactly as she pleased, without compromise or regret. 7. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling heartthrob, played pirates and heroes while hiding his own scandalous adventures. Flynn's biographer Charles Hyam revealed affairs with men, including actor Ross Alexander and Hollywood power players, alongside his notorious womanizing. His yacht became legendary for wild parties where gender boundaries dissolved completely. Flynn faced statutory charges in 1942 that nearly destroyed him, yet his bisexuality remained Hollywood's open secret. Friends described him as hedonistic, pursuing pleasure wherever he found it. The adventures of Robin Hood made him immortal, earning $2.1 million. But his personal life was even more adventurous than his films. Flynn's autobiography skipped over his relationships with men, protecting his image even in confession. He died at 50 from years of excess, his body as worn out as his reputation. Co-stars whispered about his fluid attractions, but publicists kept it from fan magazines. Flynn's legacy is swashbuckling adventure on screen and uncontrolled chaos behind closed doors. 8. Joan Crawford. The ultimate Hollywood survivor clawed her way to stardom and loved whoever she wanted along the way. Crawford's daughter Christina's memoir alleged relationships with women, including actress Barbara Stanwyck, though Stanwyck denied it. Crawford maintained high-profile marriages while carrying on intense female friendships that biographers suggest crossed into romance. Her rivalry with Bette Davis masked their alleged brief affair, adding complexity to their legendary feud. Mildred Pierce won her an Oscar and $1 million, cementing her comeback when studios thought she was finished. Crawford controlled her image ruthlessly, but rumors about her private attractions persisted despite her efforts. Friends described her as intensely emotional, with both male and female partners. She adopted children and projected traditional values publicly, while living differently in private. Crawford died in 1977. Her estate battle revealing financial struggles, despite decades of stardom. Her true personal life remains debated, but evidence suggests she loved beyond Hollywood's acceptable boundaries. 9. Laurence Olivier, Britain's greatest stage actor, married 3 times, yet carried on relationships with men throughout his career. Olivier's affair with comedian Danny Kaye was Hollywood's worst-kept secret during the 1940s, straining his marriage to Vivien Leigh. Biographers documented his relationship with actor Henry Ainley early in his career, though Olivier never publicly acknowledged it. His performances in Hamlet and Wuthering Heights defined classical acting, but his private complexity remained hidden. Colleagues described him as emotionally intense with male co-stars, forming bonds that seemed more than professional. Olivier's last wife, Joan Plowright, stood by him despite knowing about his past, choosing loyalty over scandal. His knighthood in 1947 came while he balanced public respectability with private desires. Friends claimed he struggled with his attractions to men, feeling ashamed in an era that criminalized them. Olivier died in 1989 worth over $20 million, his legacy secure as Britain's theatrical giant. His full truth still whispered rather than declared. 10. Vivien Leigh, the Gone with the Wind star, lived as passionately off-screen as Scarlett O'Hara did on it. Leigh's bipolar disorder fueled intense relationships with both men and women, including rumored affairs with actresses during her theatrical tours. Her marriage to Laurence Olivier crumbled partly due to both their extramarital attractions, creating a complicated dynamic. Leigh won 2 Oscars, but battled mental illness that made her unpredictable and sometimes difficult. Friends described her as magnetically attractive to people of all genders, forming deep connections quickly. Her relationship with actor Peter Finch was well documented, but female companions remained more mysterious. Studios protected her image carefully, knowing scandal could ruin the $3.9 million Gone with the Wind investment. Leigh died young at 53 from tuberculosis, leaving behind unforgettable performances and whispered stories. Her beauty was legendary, but her emotional complexity made her truly fascinating. Biographers continued debating the full extent of her relationships, with some evidence remaining deliberately destroyed. 11. Tyrone Power. The matinee idol's perfect face hid considerable inner conflict about his attractions. Power married 3 times, producing children and maintaining his heartthrob image while allegedly conducting affairs with men, including Cesar Romero and Errol Flynn. His relationship with Judy Garland was genuine friendship, both navigating Hollywood's expectations while hiding their true selves. The Mark of Zorro and Blood and Sand made him a top box office draw worth millions, but personal happiness eluded him. Power's final wife, Debbie, acknowledged rumors after his death, suggesting she knew about his complexity. He died suddenly of a heart attack at 44 while filming, leaving questions forever unanswered. Friends described him as deeply closeted, terrified exposure would end his career during the height of his fame. Power's son, Tyrone Power Jr., later addressed his father's rumored bisexuality with compassion. The actor's handsome exterior masked genuine pain about living authentically. His legacy remains those swashbuckling roles, but insiders knew his real life required different kinds of courage. 12. Barbara Stanwyck, the tough-talking dame of film noir, lived by her own rules in every way. Stanwyck never had children, maintained close relationships with women that sparked constant speculation, and married twice without lasting success. Her alleged romance with Joan Crawford was Hollywood legend, though both denied it publicly. Stanwyck's friendship with actress Helen Ferguson lasted decades, with some biographers suggesting it was more than platonic. Double Indemnity and Sorry Wrong Number showcased her incredible range, earning respect that protected her from some gossip. She reportedly had affairs with male co-stars including Robert Taylor, whom she briefly married, but female companions remained constant. Stanwyck's career spanned 5 decades, earning her $10 million and 4 Emmy Awards, proving talent could outlast scandal. Friends described her as intensely private about personal matters, neither confirming nor denying whispers. She died in 1990, her estate famously leaving nothing to her adopted son after their estrangement. Stanwyck's toughness extended to protecting her private life from studio interference and public judgment. 13. Montgomery Clift. The tortured method actor's beauty masked deep inner conflict about his identity. Clift's relationships with both men and women were documented by biographers, including affairs with actresses Elizabeth Taylor and Libby Holman, and men from his New York theater circle. His 1956 car accident disfigured him, leading to addiction and depression that marked his final decade. A Place in the Sun made him a star, earning $150,000 per film, but happiness remained elusive. Elizabeth Taylor became his closest confidant, understanding his complexity without judgment. Clift's intensity on screen reflected genuine emotional turmoil off-screen about living authentically. Friends described him as deeply sensitive, struggling with society's expectations versus his desires. His death at 45 from a heart attack ended years of visible decline. Clift never publicly addressed his bisexuality, though it was understood by those close to him. His performances remain heartbreaking, partly because they captured his real vulnerability. Modern biographers consider him among Hollywood's most tragic figures, talented beyond measure, but unable to find peace. 14. Sal Mineo the Rebel. Without a Cause. Star's life. Trajectory showed Hollywood's cruelty toward those who couldn't hide. Mineo dated women early in his career, but became more open about relationships with men as opportunities dried up. His advocacy for equality rights in the 1970s was brave when most actors stayed silent. Mineo's murder in 1976 during a robbery shocked Hollywood, cutting short a comeback attempt. He'd earned an Oscar nomination at 17, seeming destined for greatness before his bisexuality became public knowledge. Directors stopped casting him as leading man material, forcing him into smaller roles despite his talent. Mineo's relationship with actress Jill Howarth was genuine, but he also loved men, living honestly as his career suffered. Friends described him as courageous, refusing to fake heteronormativity even when it cost him work. His estate was modest, under $100,000, showing how Hollywood abandoned him financially. Mineo's legacy is complicated, a talented performer punished for being authentic decades too early. 15. Anthony Perkins. Norman Bates himself struggled with attractions that terrified him more than any Hitchcock thriller. Perkins underwent conversion therapy, married actress Barry Berenson, and had 2 sons while battling his desires for men throughout his life. His relationship with actor Tab Hunter was documented in Hunter's memoir, describing genuine affection complicated by career fears. Psycho made Perkins iconic, earning $9.5 million, and typecast him forever. But personal peace remained impossible. Friends described him as gentle and tortured, unable to reconcile his feelings with 1960s Hollywood demands. Perkins contracted HIV and died in 1992, having lived divided between public image and private truth. His wife Barry stood by him, their marriage apparently genuine despite his complexity. Critics praised his sensitive performances, never knowing they reflected his real internal conflict. Perkins's son Oz later spoke compassionately about his father's struggles with identity. His story represents countless performers forced to choose between authenticity and career survival in an unforgiving era. 16. Alla Nazimova. The Russian stage legend created Hollywood's most famous secret gathering place for non-conforming stars. Nazimova's Garden of Allah Hotel became a haven where performers could be themselves, hosting parties where gender expectations disappeared. Her marriage to Charles Bryant was apparently a cover, with both pursuing same-gender relationships openly within their circle. Nazimova's affair with screenwriter June Mathis was documented, as were relationships with men, including Rudolph Valentino early in his career. Salome showcased her artistic vision in 1923, though its financial failure hurt her career. She continued working until her death in 1945. Her influence on Hollywood's hidden culture immeasurable. Friends described her as fearless and European in her attitudes toward attraction. Nazimova's estate was modest after years of supporting other artists and maintaining her expensive hotel. Her legacy isn't just her films, but the safe space she created when safety was rare. Modern researchers consider her essential to understanding Hollywood's secretive culture during the studio system era. 17. Judith Anderson. The Australian actress terrified audiences as Mrs. Danvers in Rebecca, while living quietly with her truth. Anderson's 40-year relationship with producer Katharine Hepburn, not the actress, remained private until after both died. She married twice, briefly, both unions ending quickly, suggesting obligation rather than desire. Rebecca earned her an Oscar nomination and $50,000, establishing her as Hollywood's greatest villain. Anderson's stage career flourished more than film, perhaps because theater allowed more personal freedom. Friends described her as intensely private, never discussing personal matters even with close colleagues. She maintained relationships with men sporadically, but her deepest connection was with Katharine. Anderson received a Dame Commander honor in 1960, living openly in her native Australia between projects. She worked into her 80s, dying in 1992 with her estate valued modestly despite decades of work. Anderson's decision to keep her private life completely separate from her career protected her, but also isolated her from potential support. 18. Claudette Colbert. The screwball comedy queen's effervescent on-screen persona masked a carefully guarded private life. Colbert's marriage to Dr. Joel Pressman lasted 33 years until his death. But biographers suggest her deepest emotional bond was with actress or secretary Helen O'Hagan. The two lived together after Pressman's death, maintaining a relationship that friends described as far more than professional. It happened one night, won her an Oscar, and changed romantic comedy forever, earning over $1 million. Colbert controlled her image ruthlessly, refusing to be photographed from her bad side and limiting press access. Her relationship with O'Hagan lasted until Colbert's death in 1996, spanning several decades of companionship. Friends who suggested romance were dismissed, but the evidence of their connection seems clear. Colbert's estate was substantial, over $3 million, showing her business savvy matched her talent. She never publicly addressed speculation about her personal life, maintaining mystery until the end. Modern biographers consider her among Hollywood's most successful at separating public persona from private reality. 19. Janet Gaynor. The first Best Actress. Oscar winner lived a complicated truth behind her girl-next-door image. Gaynor's marriage to costume designer Adrian was allegedly a lavender arrangement, with both pursuing same-gender relationships privately. Her partnership with actress Mary Martin became Hollywood legend, the two inseparable for decades in what friends called a romantic relationship. A Star is Born showcased Gaynor's talent in 1937, though it didn't match her silent film success financially. She retired from acting in 1939, choosing private life over continued stardom and studio control. Gaynor and Martin traveled together, lived near each other, and maintained their bond until Gaynor's death in 1984. Adrian's death in 1959 freed Gaynor from maintaining appearances, living more openly afterward. Friends described the Gaynor-Martin relationship as devoted and genuine, though both remained discreet publicly. Gaynor's estate was comfortable, having invested wisely during her peak earning years. Her legacy represents early Hollywood's complicated arrangements where marriage didn't always mean what audiences assumed. 20. Cesar Romero. The Latin lover and Joker actor remained Hollywood's most eligible bachelor for decades, never marrying despite constant studio pressure. Romero's relationships with men were open secrets in Hollywood circles, including rumored affairs with Tyrone Power and other leading men. He escorted glamorous women to events, maintaining appearances while living his truth privately. Batman made him iconic in the 1960s, introducing him to new generations, while his personal life remained mysterious. Romero's close friendship with actress Joan Crawford sparked rumors, but friends insisted it was genuine platonic connection. He worked steadily for 6 decades, accumulating wealth estimated at $5 million by his death in 1994. Friends described him as charming and discreet, never confirming or denying speculation about his attractions. Romero's decision to remain unmarried was radical for a leading man, risking career damage for personal honesty. His relationships with women seemed genuine alongside his attractions to men, fitting the bisexual pattern. Romero died, having lived mostly on his own terms, an achievement rare for his generation of performers. Hollywood's golden age demanded conformity, but these 20 stars refused to completely hide who they loved, even if they couldn't live openly. Their bisexuality remained Hollywood's worst-kept secret, whispered about but never acknowledged. Which of these stories shocked you most? Did we miss someone obvious? Drop your thoughts below, and here's the real question. Would any of these legends have achieved the same success if they'd lived openly? Or did the secrecy itself create the mystique that made them immortal? Sound off in the comments, because this debate is far from over.